He had billions in his bank, power in every corner of the city, and influence that could silence entire rooms. Yet the one thing he couldn't buy was a moment of joy for his own son. Ethan Wallace was a man who seemed to own everything. His name was printed in glossy magazines, his face appeared in newspapers beside billion-dollar deals, and his presence commanded silence in every boardroom he entered. To the world, he was the definition of success. A man who had built an empire from nothing and stood untouchable at the very top. People admired him, envied him, and feared him. But beneath the sharp suits and the carefully guarded smile, Ethan carried a truth few ever saw. He was also a father. His 9-year-old son, Liam, was the single person who could break through his stone-like exterior. Liam was born with a disability that made walking painful and balance nearly impossible. Doctors offered treatments, specialists gave advice, but nothing changed the fact that Liam couldn't run across a field like other boys his age, or dance to the music he loved so much. Ethan adored his son, but he didn't know how to bridge the gap between his world of power and his child's world of quiet struggles. Instead, he did what he always knew best: control. He hired the best caregivers, built ramps and custom wheelchairs, and shielded Liam from situations that might embarrass him. To Ethan, protection meant holding his son back from trying what might break him. That evening, under golden chandeliers and sparkling crystal, Ethan arrived at a charity gala, Liam seated in his wheelchair beside him. Guests in fine gowns and tailored tuxedos flooded the ballroom, laughter rising above the music of a live orchestra. Waiters glided with trays of champagne, and polished conversations filled the air. Ethan remained in his familiar role, an untouchable billionaire, politely smiling while his heart stayed elsewhere. Liam, however, didn't care about the glamour. His eyes followed the dancers on the floor, twirling to the rhythm of the violins. A longing flickered in his expression. One Ethan noticed, but chose not to address. What could he possibly say? That some dreams were simply too heavy for reality? And then something unexpected happened. A young waitress noticed Liam's gaze. She wasn't wearing diamonds or designer gowns, but she carried something wealth could never buy: warmth. With one smile, she set into motion a moment that would change Ethan's life forever. Sometimes, it isn't wealth or wisdom that changes a life. It's the courage of a stranger's smile. The young waitress's name was Maya. She had been moving quickly through the grand ballroom all evening, balancing trays of drinks and weaving through glittering gowns. Yet when her eyes met Liam's, she didn't see the billionaire's son in a wheelchair. She saw a child longing to be part of a world just out of reach. She crouched down to his level, her voice soft but steady. "Do you like the music?" she asked. Liam's shy nod was enough to reveal what his heart truly wanted. Maya's smile widened, and instead of walking away, she leaned closer and whispered, "Would you like to try a dance?" Ethan, standing only a few steps away, stiffened instantly. His protective instincts surged. How dare a waitress suggest such a thing? Didn't she know Liam couldn't? But before Ethan could intervene, Liam's small hand reached forward, his eyes sparkling with a rare kind of hope. Maya set her tray aside and gently helped him rise. Liam wobbled, his fragile legs trembling, but Maya steadied him with grace. "You lead," she encouraged softly, and to Ethan's shock, his son began to move. Hesitant, unsteady, but moving nonetheless. No one else in the room noticed. The dancers on the floor continued their elegant waltz, the orchestra played on, and the crowd kept laughing. But for Ethan, the world stopped. He watched, breath caught in his chest as his son took steps he had never dared to before, guided not by wealth, not by doctors, but by kindness. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something break inside him. His son wasn't fragile. He was brave, and it took a waitress to show him. The richest man in the room wasn't the one holding power, but the little boy daring to take a shaky step. Ethan's chest tightened as he stood frozen, watching Liam move in Maya's arms. Each step was clumsy, each moment uncertain, yet his son's face glowed with a joy brighter than the chandeliers above. Ethan had attended countless galas, but never had he witnessed anything so powerful. For years, Ethan believed he was protecting Liam by shielding him from risks. He thought safety meant avoiding the pain of failure. He had never once considered that, in doing so, he had also kept his son from tasting the sweetness of courage. And now, with the gentle guidance of a stranger, Liam was proving him wrong. The short dance ended with Maya lowering Liam back into his chair. Instead of sadness, Liam burst into laughter, the kind of laughter that made heads turn, though not because of pity, but because it was so pure, so contagious. Ethan's heart ached. He realized he had never heard his son laugh like that before. Maya bent down, whispering encouragement into Liam's ear. She didn't treat him as fragile nor as an obligation. She treated him as a boy capable of leading, capable of more than anyone believed. Ethan finally stepped forward. Maya straightened quickly, her face tightening with worry. "I'm sorry," she said softly, fearing she had crossed a line. "I only wanted to help him feel included." But instead of anger, Ethan felt something else rising within him. Gratitude mixed with shame. Gratitude because she had given Liam what all his money couldn't. Shame because it took a waitress to show him his son's strength. That night, as the gala ended and the world returned to its rhythm, Ethan couldn't shake the image of Liam's smile. For the first time in years, the billionaire father realized that his empire had blinded him to the greatest treasure he already had. And in his heart, something long buried began to awaken. Sometimes the greatest turning point in a billionaire's life doesn't happen in a boardroom, but at a breakfast table with a stranger who cared. The night after the gala, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat alone in his study, the memory of Liam's laughter echoing louder than any applause he had ever received. The image of Maya helping his son dance replayed over and over in his mind, stirring questions he had avoided for years. By morning, Ethan made an unusual decision. Instead of heading to his skyscraper office, he arranged a private brunch at his estate and sent an invitation to Maya. She was stunned. Why would a billionaire want to meet a waitress outside of the ballroom? Her instinct was to refuse, but when Liam heard her name, his face lit up. "Please come," he begged. How could she say no? When Maya arrived, she expected distance, formality, maybe even disapproval. Instead, she was greeted at the door by Ethan himself. No tuxedo this time, no crowd, just a father who looked strangely nervous. They sat together at a long oak table, sunlight streaming through tall windows. Ethan asked her about her life, and she spoke honestly, about juggling jobs, about raising her younger siblings, and about her love for dance, the one thing that gave her strength. Liam listened in awe, and then, with all the innocence in the world, he asked, "Will you teach me again?" Ethan looked at Maya, and in that moment, his proud exterior softened. "Would you be willing to?" he asked quietly. It wasn't just a question, it was an admission that even with all his billions, he couldn't give his son everything alone. The most valuable lessons aren't taught in schools or bought with wealth. They're lived in the quiet moments when someone believes in you. From that day on, Maya began visiting the Wallace estate twice a week. The mansion, once echoing with silence, slowly filled with music and laughter. Ethan's staff looked on in quiet surprise. Never before had anyone outside his circle been welcomed so warmly. Each session, Maya brought more than just steps, she brought courage. She never treated Liam as fragile or limited. When he stumbled, she clapped her hands and said, "That's part of dancing. You fall, and then you rise." When he grew tired, she encouraged him with gentle patience. Slowly, the boy who once hid behind his wheelchair began to believe he was capable of more than anyone imagined. Ethan often watched from the doorway, arms folded. At first, he told himself he was simply ensuring his son's safety, but deep inside, he knew he was the one learning. For years, he had measured strength in profits and power. Now he saw it in the way Liam pushed himself after every fall, in the way Maya celebrated the smallest victories as if they were championships. One evening, after completing an entire short routine, Liam turned to his father, his face flushed with excitement. "Dad, did you see? I can dance." His words rang through the room like music. Ethan's throat tightened. He nodded, struggling to keep his voice steady. "Yes, son," he whispered. "You can." And for the first time in a very long while, Ethan felt proud. not of his empire, but of the little boy teaching him the meaning of courage. It's easy to build an empire, but far harder to build a bond. And for the first time, Ethan was learning to be rich in what mattered most. As weeks turned into months, Ethan Wallace began to change in ways even he didn't recognize. The man who once buried himself in endless meetings now found himself canceling appointments to watch Liam practice. The late-night glow of spreadsheets was replaced with evenings filled with music, laughter, and the sound of his son's determined footsteps. Ethan noticed how Liam's confidence grew. He no longer hesitated to try, no longer hid behind excuses. Every misstep became a reason to try again, and every fall was followed by a triumphant rise. Ethan couldn't help but wonder, if this was what a waitress could teach his son, then what had he, with all his wealth, been missing all along? He also began to notice Maya differently, not just as the woman guiding Liam, but as someone carrying her own silent burdens. One evening, as she packed her bag, Ethan overheard her on the phone, her voice trembling as she spoke about overdue rent and her younger siblings needing new shoes. The old Ethan would have written a check without thinking twice, but this time he paused. He realized that money could solve problems, but it couldn't replace presence, encouragement, or belief. So, instead of simply handing her cash, he sat with her, listened, and offered something deeper, support that recognized her worth. He arranged scholarships for her siblings, yes, but he also encouraged her to pursue her own dream of formal dance training. Through Maya's kindness, Ethan discovered humility. Through Liam's courage, he discovered love. For the first time, the billionaire father was becoming truly human. Some moments don't just change a night, they change a lifetime. And for Ethan Wallace, that moment came under the glow of a ballroom chandelier, when his son taught him what it truly meant to live. Months later, another charity gala was held in the very same ballroom where Maya had first reached out to Liam. But this time, things were different. Ethan didn't arrive as the cold, untouchable billionaire. He arrived as a father, his son by his side, his heart far lighter than before. The chandelier sparkled, the orchestra played, and the crowd buzzed with familiar glamour. Yet as Liam wheeled himself onto the stage, the entire room fell into an expectant hush. This was no ordinary appearance. This was a boy who had once been hidden, now stepping, quite literally, into the light. Maya stood beside him, offering only the gentlest support. The music began, and with determination shining in his eyes, Liam rose from his chair. The audience gasped. His legs trembled, his balance wavered, but he lifted his chin proudly. Step by shaky step, he moved to the rhythm. Maya followed his lead, guiding when needed, but letting him shine. Every second felt like a miracle. Guests who had come to sip champagne now found themselves holding their breath, eyes glistening. The billionaire's son, once thought too fragile, too limited, was dancing, not with perfection, but with courage. Ethan stood at the edge of the stage, his hands trembling, his heart pounding harder than in any business deal he had ever made. And when Liam turned, his small voice carrying across the room, "Dad, are you watching?" Ethan could no longer hold back. Tears streamed freely down his face. "Yes, son," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I'm watching, and I've never been prouder." When the music ended, the ballroom erupted into thunderous applause. But Ethan barely heard it. He rushed forward, kneeling in front of Liam as the boy, breathless and glowing with pride, asked softly, "Did I do good, Dad?" Ethan pulled him into his arms, holding him tighter than ever before. "You did more than good, Liam. You changed me. You've shown me what real strength looks like." The audience moved beyond words, watched a billionaire father weep openly, not for loss, but for love found. In that moment, Ethan's wealth, his empire, his influence, all of it felt small compared to the lesson his son had given him. That night, Ethan didn't just see his son dance. He saw him lead. He saw him rise. And he understood at last that true riches weren't measured in dollars or deals, but in moments of courage, kindness, and connection. From then on, Ethan Wallace's legacy was no longer about skyscrapers or investments. It was about a little boy's dance, a waitress's compassion, and a father's rebirth. And under those chandeliers, a billionaire learned the greatest truth of all. The wealthiest heart is the one that finally learns how to love.